Good morning to all the baseball fans out there. Appreciate you joining in again this week, which is it's rapidly becoming my favorite hour of the week. Jumping on, talking some baseball. Obviously, this is Around the State, a Prep Baseball Alabama podcast that we obviously host each week to discuss things that happened last week in baseball, look ahead to this week. And I think the big thing is where we release our 1A through 7A classification polls and our Power 25, which will be no different this week. We'll be doing that as well. It's a pretty cool time of year, man. Obviously, we got high school season going on. We've been out and about. We appreciate everybody jumping on. I know the Gulf Coast Classic 2 is this week, wherever you're listening from, maybe listening from school, maybe listening from work, from home, even down at the beach for some of those teams that have traveled down to the Gulf Shores area for the Gulf Coast Classic 2. We greatly appreciate you jumping on and listening. Again, as always, I do want to remind you, we do have that comment box out to the right. If you have a question or comment, please throw that in there, and we'll try to get to those questions or comments. I know in the weeks past we've had some pretty good audience involvement there, and we enjoy that, so that we don't have to do just all the talking, answer some questions you may have, or even some comments. But just Austin, how are you doing, man?
Good. Obviously, in a different location this week. I'm up in Huntsville. We're coming off of our North Alabama Showdown this past weekend, and 10 good teams, and having it at 2 host sites. Thought it was a great weekend. Got to see some different teams. And, it was a great day yesterday. Got to go to Bristol, watch a heck of a race, and doing this podcast, headed back home after the podcast, and we'll get out and start another week and just watching some more baseball. So I know areas already, some teams have already started area. I know there's some more starting this week. You have that Hartselle, Coleman, Decatur, Muscle Shoals, they're starting up. I know there's some other areas starting up. And then obviously 1A through 6A will start area play sooner with Class 7A. Their playoffs start a week later. So their area play, I think, is probably still about a month out. So but in Class 1A through 6A, it's starting to get down to crunch time when those area series matter, and it determines who's going to finish as the winner and the runner-up of your area. So it's may not feel like it, may feel like the season started last week, which is kind of how it feels to us. But biggest part of the season is right around the corner.
Yeah, you're right. You mentioned that last week, our North Alabama Showdown we had up here, 10 quality teams. We did have a team from Kentucky that had to cancel about a week and a half before the event. So we're very appreciative of those teams that filled in for those spots. And we had some good teams fill in for those spots. So that really worked in our favor. I also want to send out a huge thank you to our host sites, both James Clemens and Hazel Green. If you pretty much statewide, Friday, overnight Thursday night into Friday, and we all got a lot of rain. And believe it or not, we did not miss a game on Friday. So, that took some work from those host sites, and we greatly appreciate that. And the outfield was a little bit wet, but the infield was in great shape. Thursday was beautiful weather, perfect day, and the Saturday was much the same as Thursday. We only played at James Clemens on Saturday. Having that turf infield obviously helps drastically. So, again, thanks to those teams, fans, everybody that was involved with this past weekend. I know I was at James Clemens all 3 days, and I had just about all of my games were really, really competitive, good high school baseball games. So that was awesome. Obviously, college, you mentioned some things going on. You mentioned the high school baseball season. The colleges, man, they're getting into their weekend series and conference play. So it's an important time for them. And you mentioned Bristol yesterday, and then I'm going to throw something out yesterday. There you go. Got your Chase Elliott shirt on there. All right.
Top 10.
Top 10. That's right. He's turned a lot of top 10s in, hadn't he? About 3 or 4 or 4 or 5 races.
This year was his first one this year.
Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me. I apologize. Yeah, he's been running up towards the front more than he was last year. So, but then yesterday, as you know, the selection show for March Madness. Man, you know what? I'd like to see how many. Who do you think's going to win the men's bracket? If you want to go ahead and throw it out there, throw that in the comments section just for fun, and we may get back to that. So who you think is going to win it all this year? I know it's probably a year where there's not really a dominant team. Obviously the one seeds, UConn is the overall number one seed, but who you think is going to win it all? I know this is a baseball podcast, but a little March Madness. That's good, a fun time to follow all the games.
I got Auburn.
You got Auburn.
Yeah. No, not biased too.
Not biased. Okay. All right. Not biased. I hear you. Anybody else want to put out there whoever you think is going to win it? Let's let us know. But as we're waiting on those things, I will look ahead to the week before we get into our polls that all of you are waiting on. And these are pretty much weekly, the same thing that we do, but just to reiterate, just to make sure you know what to look for. Obviously, on Mondays, we release our polls, our 1A through 7A, and our Power 25. Obviously, that'll be released here in probably 5 or 10 minutes on this podcast. And then later this afternoon, we'll put those polls on our social media platforms. Also, to let you know, I believe tomorrow, the national high school rankings will be updated. And obviously, that's not us; that's our national guys. But those polls will be released, I believe, tomorrow. It is. From us in Alabama, tomorrow we'll be releasing our Mizuno Pitcher of the Week and Mizuno Player of the Week. Thanks to those coaches that submitted all of the players. We've narrowed it down to a few for each award, and we're going to try to firm that up. On Wednesday, we'll be releasing our Diamond Notes, and as you probably are aware, the Diamond Notes are people or players that were nominated for Pitcher or Player of the Week, but just came up maybe a little short, but are still deserving of a mention. And that's what we do with our Diamond Notes. Take a look at some other impressive performances across the state. As always, our weekly scout blog will be updated as we get out to games. So, be on the lookout for that. As I mentioned, it's always updated the day after we see games. And then we are working on our scout blog from the North Alabama Showdown that we just talked about. That will be out either tomorrow or Wednesday, where we'll take a look at probably 20 or 25 players from that event that really stood out, and taking a more in-depth look at those players. We're already working on that. So, again, another big week, just another regular week, I guess you can say. And I guess we've sort of waited long enough. And we'll go ahead and jump into our classification polls. And as always, we'll begin with 1A. Austin, you want to do it? You want me to get us started?
I'll take 1A.
Okay, go ahead.
We have.
Let me mention. I'm sorry, Austin. Not a lot of shakeup this week in all the polls. A lot of the teams that were ranked really held serve this week and had good weeks. So there are some small adjustments here and there, but not a lot of movement this week.
Yeah, we've got we got 9 of the 10 teams from last week's poll. And Lynn is that new team that jumps in, and they come in at number 10. They sit at 6-2. You also have Leroy at number 9. They stay put after going 2-1 on the week. Summerton Christian also stays put at number 8, as does Sweetwater. Summerton Christian went 4-0 this past week, but Sweetwater went 2-0, and looks like things kind of held serve in Class 1A this week. A lot of teams going undefeated, not much room for movement. So like I said, Sweetwater 7, Summerton Christian at number 8. At number 6 is Billingsley. Billingsley sits at 7-4 after going 4-1 on the week. At number 5 is Brantley, who slides up a spot. Brantley sits at 7-2 and went 4-0 this past week. And then at number 4, we have Hackleburg, who slides down from 3 this week. They sit at 8-5. At number 3 is Florala, who continues to roll on and rack up some impressive wins. They went 3-0 and sit at 6-1 overall on the season. At number 2, the top 2 stays the same. At number 2 is Appalachian, who sits at 8-2. They went 2-1 this past week. And then, man, look at Millry going 4-0 this past week. They sit still have an undefeated record of 16-0, and they
Wow.
hold on to that top spot pretty well. Looking at some teams just outside the top 10 this week, we have Calhoun, who sits at 0-2. Galesville is 9-2. Victory Christian is 8-3, and then Winterboro is 4-4.
And that'll take us straight into 2A, and as very similar to 1A, as you mentioned, we do have one new team in 2A, and they come in at number 10. That's the Hatton Hornets. They come in with a record of 13-5. They took the place of Lindsay Lane Christian. We know that Lindsay Lane is a very good ball club. Probably, if we had a number 11, they would probably be at number 11. But Hatton did get a area series win, taking 2 of 3 from Lindsay Lane this week. Hatton was in our teams last week to keep an eye on. They went and took care of business in that area series, and they make their appearance at number 10. At number 9, moving up a spot, staying hot, going 4-1 on the week is Collinsville. Collinsville comes in with a record of 12-2. Tuscaloosa Academy drops a few spots. Last week I believe they went 3-2. They do drop from 5 to 8, but we know they're a very good ball club. They're 5. Mars Hill jumps a spot. Mars Hill went 3-0 last week to move their record to 9-4. They come in at number 7. At number 6, Whitesburg Christian. Whitesburg Christian went 3-1 last week. They currently sit at 6-3. Their lone loss was to 4A Madison County last week by a score of 2-1. Again, that's a 2A school playing up 4A. We're not going to punish them for that a close loss to a quality 4A team. At number 5, dropping just a couple spots, is Ayrton. They went 1-1 on the week. They sit at 7-4. At number 4, a team that continues just to ascend up the rankings, Wicksburg. They jumped from 7 after going 2-0 last week. They come in at number 4 with a record of 11-2. And at number 3, the Rebels of GW Long. And I can tell you, for the first time, we now have an inside source down in Skipperville that is going to make sure we have the correct record for GW Long. We appreciate that source letting us know. Nobody in
the state's going to know GW Long's actual record except us.
That is correct. That's right. But we've got that source there, and we are good to go there in Skipperville. But the Rebels do come in at number 3 with a record of 8-4. They went 3-0 last week. Staying put at number 2 is Vincent. Vincent went 4-0 last week. They're at 13-2. And then at number 1, Pike Lib, they went 3-1 last week. I forget who their loss was to.
I forget too.
Yeah, but it was who was it?
I think it was a good team.
Yeah, it was a good team. But Pike Liberal continues to roll. They're sitting at 13-1 and hold on to that number 1 ranking this week. They lost to Ayrton. That's correct. Yeah. All right. And so that's our top 10 in 2A. Again, a lot of impressive teams there. There are a couple of teams right outside in 2A. Fayetteville is at 4-9. North Sand Mountain, the Bison, are at 8-5. Reeltown, man, they continue to roll off impressive wins. They're at 11-2. Southeastern is at 6-6. Bayshore Christian at 6-7. Winston County at 6-4. Pleasant Valley comes in with a record of 7-5. Donahoe, they dropped out a couple weeks ago, but they appear to be getting things rolling now. Donahoe comes in with a record of 5-6. And the aforementioned Lindsay Lane, they do come in at 11-5. And again, if we had a number 11, it would probably be Lindsay Lane, but that rounds us out in 2A.
Let's see. Moving on to Class 3A, we have 9 of the 10 teams with one new team making their way in the top 10, making their way back in the top 10, and that's New Brockton. They come in at number 10. They were featured, I think, 2 weeks ago, ultimately fell out, but have started playing some good baseball. They beat Ayrton this past week, I know, had some other wins. They sit at 11-5 and went 1-1 on the week. Sliding down a few spots this week is Gordo, who sits at 5-6. And they come in at number 9. At number 8 is Westbrook Christian, sliding up 1 spot. They sit at 6-4, went 2-1 this past week, and one of those wins was over 5A number 1 Alexandria on a walk-off hit in the in the bottom of the ninth. At number 7 is Thomasville, who jumps up one spot. They sit at 10-4, went 4-1 this past week. At number 6 is Providence Christian, sitting at 6-6. They went 2-2 this past week. One of those wins being over Enterprise. At number 5 is Lauderdale County, who jumps up 2 spots. They sit at 5-3. They went 2-1 this past week, and I know they went over and played in a little spring break. I don't know if it was a tournament or they played against some Mississippi teams and Tennessee teams over in Mississippi. At number 4 is St. James, sitting at 8-4. They went 1-0 this past week. I think it was the game that I saw when they beat Trinity Presbyterian. At number 3 is Piedmont. Looks like the Bulldogs are starting to get back to midseason form. They went 5-0 this past week. They sit at 10-4 overall. At number 2 is Prattville Christian, who went 1-1 this past week. And then sitting at the top spot is Decatur Heritage. They are 10-4 and went 3-2 this past week, but played some really good teams in our North Alabama Showdown, and led by those arms and Bo Mitchell and Brady Wilson, some other guys. They stay at the top spot here going into week 5. Looking at some teams just outside the top 10 in Class 3A, we have Excel at 8-3. Fayette County was the one team who dropped out this week. They sit at 10-7. Oaks Bluff is 8-5. Ohatchee is 5-6. Winfield is 9-6. W.S. Neal is 8-7. Vinemont is 13-3. And then Houston Academy sits at 5-6.
So that will move us along to 4A. In 4A, we do have the same top teams this week. Again, just about all the teams held serve this week. And there is some slight shakeup in the 4A poll this week. But again, we've got those same top 10 teams. Staying at number 10, Munford. Munford went 2-0. They come in with a record of 11-2. Orange Beach continue to roll right along. The Makos went 4-0 last week, currently come in with a record of 11-3. Trinity Presbyterian, they went 2-1 last week. They drop a couple spots this week. Again, nothing slighted towards them. Just some other teams have had really impressive weeks. Trinity Presbyterian, their overall record sits at 11-5. At number 7, Deschler moves up a spot. They have a record of 13-4. They went 6-0 last week. So that's a team that I've been high on since the start of the season. You and I have talked about them. And 6-0 last week, to get to 13-4 is rather impressive. Staying put at number 6, the Etowah Blue Devils. They went 4-3 this week against some quality out-of-state teams. The Blue Devils are getting things going. This is eerily similar to what happened last year, in their run to the 4A state championship. Obviously, we don't know if Etowah's going to win it or not, but, it's setting up sort of the same as they did last year. At number 5, Westminster Christian. They do drop a spot this week. They went 2-2. They come in with a record of 9-5. Dropping a spot also, the Yellow Jackets of Corner. And again, dropping a spot for Corner. They went 2-0. They come in with a record of 11-3. Nothing that they've done. Just there was a team that we needed to move up. We'll talk about that in just a second. Dropping a spot from 2-3, the Admirals of Bayside Academy. They went 2-2. No, excuse me. Yes, they went 2-2 last week. They come in with a record of 9-5, and making a big splash from number 7 to number 2 is American Christian. And that is a team that we've talked about for weeks about their record. Don't get fooled by their record. I know 2 weeks ago they were 2-5, then they were 3-7, and now they come in at 8-8. And the schedule that they have played has been very, very impressive. I know you saw them this week against a team that we think is very capable of making big noise in 7A, the Oak Mountain Eagles. They split with Oak Mountain. They come in at 8-8. That is a very talented team at American Christian. And you've been saying that for weeks and weeks and weeks, and you saw it firsthand. So they do make a big jump from 7 to 2. And then staying at the top spot, Bibb County, they did go 3-1 this week. They're 15-1, and again, currently sit at the top of the rankings in 4A. Now, some of those teams that are right outside, man, and I'm telling you, there's some teams outside this that could very well be in the top 10. Cleveland County sits at 7-1. The Hamilton Aggies continue to roll. Again, we said last week, they're led by a lot of underclassmen. They come in at 13-5. The Tigers of Madison County, they're at 13-3, man. And, you know, I heard from a Madison County person yesterday about, man, we need to be ranked, you know, and they may be. That's exactly right. They might need to be ranked, but, man, it's so hard to make headway there in 4A with everybody winning up in front of you. But Madison County sits there at 13-3. North Jackson scuffled early. They're now rolling along. They're at 13-4. Cherokee County's at 12-5.
Went 6-0 last week.
North Jackson, that is correct. They went 6-0 last week. They sit at 13-4. Cherokee County, I believe, I'm almost certain, North Jackson and Cherokee County, you mentioned area series. North Jackson and Cherokee County get cranked up this week, I believe, either today or tomorrow. They open up an area series. So that will be a really impressive, or that'll be a really good 4A series. And I believe they're in an area with Etowah too. So that's 3 really good teams. Dale County rounds us out on teams outside the top 10, sitting at 9-4. So that'll take us through 4A.
Jumping into 5A, we have the same 10 teams from last week. Not much movement, really only one real small change to this week's top 10. At number 10, we have St. Paul's Episcopal, went 2-0 this past week. They sit at 8-7. Shelby County sits at 13-4 after going 5-0 on the week. Headland won an area series over Carroll. They went 2-0 this week. They sit at 5-6. Springville went 1-2 this past week, but one of those losses was to Hewitt-Trussville, one of the top teams in the state. They sit at 10. Springville sits at 10-4. And number 6, staying put there, is Elmore County after going 3-1 on the week. They sit at 10-2. Sardis went 1-2 with 3-2 on the week, and they sit at 8-6. And was able to see them yesterday.
Who'd they play Saturday?
2 days ago.
Who'd they play?
They just came up to Bob Jones and played Bob Jones and Hoover. So those are where those 2 losses came from. But man, and you told me when you saw them against James Clements, they looked the part physically, and they're definitely they're gonna be one of the main threats in Class 5A this year. And then moving on to number 4 is Mobile Christian, who also sits at 8-6. They went 0-1 this week and dropped the game to Spanish Fort. And number 3 is Boaz, who is 12-1. They went 3-1 this past week. And number 2 is Gulf Shores, the Dolphins, playing down in the Gulf Coast Classic. They are 14-6. They went 2-2 this past week, but one of those wins was a noteworthy win over over Bob Jones, our number 1 team in Class 7A. So going to be, I know Connor Gear went the whole game. They won 2-1 and walked it off on a. I watched. I don't know if you saw the play that walked it off for him. It was I think they had runner on second or third with 2 outs. I think bottom of the 7th, tied 1-1, and they hit a ground ball. Braden Boots at short. He's about to field it, and it hits a lip and pops over, goes into the outfield, and man, it looked like Connor Gear was just like how we've seen him over the past few years, and big win for Gulf Shores. They come in at number 2.
And can I input something there for Gulf Shores? And one of their losses was to Huntsville with Chase Cartron on the mound. And when Chase Cartron's on the mound for Huntsville, they can beat anybody. You know, and that was and so that's one of the that's a big win, and then a loss to a really good arm, a good 7A program.
And then staying at the top spot this week is Alexandria. The Valley Cubs sit at 10-5. They beat Etowah this week. Got beat by Westbrook Christian, like we mentioned earlier, and they've got a big matchup coming up this Friday night, rematch of that 11 inning. I think it was 9 or 11 innings, but that extra innings, 11 inning thriller against Oxford in the county championship. That'll be a cool one to be at. See who throws. So that'll do it for the top 10 in Class 5A. Looking at some teams just outside the top 10 this week. In Class 5A, you have Ardmore at 11-6. Demopolis is 6-5. Marbury is 9-4. Moody is 8-9. Rehoboth is 9-6. Russellville is 9-7. Southside Gadsden is 13-6. Sylacauga is 9-3. Holtville is 9-7. East Limestone is 10-7. Valley is 12-2. And Madison Academy is 6-11.
So moving right along to 6A, we'll go ahead and get started. We've got one new team, and this is a team that bounces back in from 2 weeks ago, and they do come in at number 10. That's the Golden Eagles of Athens. They come in with a record of 10-4, and I believe they're at Hartselle today. So Athens, Athens is not scared to play people. I know they beat Oak Mountain earlier. Again, a team that we're really high on. They do come back in at number 10 with a record of 10-4. Spanish Fort stays the same after going 3-2 last week. They have a record of 12-6. Pike Road also stays put at number 8. They're at 12-4 after going 2-1 a week ago. Faith Academy, man, they're rolling. And they're making a steady incline up the polls as well. They come in at number 7. They do stay put from last week. And again, a lot of that has to do with the people in front of them continuing to win. Faith Academy went 3-0 this week. They come in with a record of 10-4. Saraland stays put at number 6. Again, sounds like a broken record, going 2-0 last week. They sit at 13-4. Number 5, Helena stays put. They went 2-2 last week, but don't let that fool you. I know they beat Thompson. Hold
on 1 second. We got to give. He told us. Our guy from last week.
Will, man, I appreciate it. And you were 100% right. I told y'all about them Gardendale boys, and we know they're good, and so is Mountain Brook. But, man, there weren't as many runs scored as you thought there would be. And, again, that's a credit to both of those arms that threw. But, man, I appreciate you getting us some inside information, Will. Thank you, and keep that coming, man. We can always use that. But Helena, they come in 10-9. I know they beat Thompson and beat Hazel Green on Saturday. That's just a solid club. The Huskies are. They stay at number 5. There's the aforementioned shakeup there, I guess you can say. We do flip-flop Gardendale and Mountain Brook. Mountain Brook still with that impressive record of 15-2. They went 3-1 this week. That close loss to Gardendale, which was Tuesday night, I believe. Gardendale, again, they jump up from 4 to 3. The Rockets are at 9-4. They went 2-1 this past week. They split on Saturday. And then holding on to the top 2 spots, some teams that have, been there for the last couple of years, is the Oxford Yellow Jackets. They come in with a record of 10-6, and the Hartselle Tigers with the record of 11-4. Those 2 teams split this past week on Saturday. Those are, I will say this: in years past, and I'm not just saying this from our vantage point, but I think that in years past, there might have been a little separation between Hartselle and Oxford and the rest of 6A. Not all of it, but a large part of it. I don't think that's the case this year. Oxford and Hartselle are both very, very good. I say that as a compliment to the other teams there. You look at 3 through 10, and even some of the teams outside that top 10 could very easily beat Hartselle or Oxford in a best 2 out of 3. So 6A is deep, and 6A is really open this year. And again, some of those other teams outside the top 10 that can still make a ton of noise. Baldwin County comes in at 11-5. Benjamin Russell at 9-5. Briarwood is the lone team that dropped out from last week. They went 2-2 this week. They sit at 8-6. Homewood is at 9-6. They've had some big wins. I believe they beat Helena. I may be wrong, but I believe that's the case.
You may be right. Yeah.
Yep. They come in.
I think they got beat by. I think they got beat by Alexandria too.
Okay.
Trip Patterson through.
That's correct. Yeah, saw a video of that. That's correct. Homewood's at 9-6. Hueytown is at 10-7, a team that we saw Saturday that came up and played in our event. But they did not drive a bus, Austin. So,
Oh man,
yeah, Muscle Shoals is at 8-4. That's a team that you saw Saturday night, and you called me and you said Muscle Shoals is solid.
they're solid. Yeah, I'd be
Yep,
interested
they're
to see
solid.
how that. I think it's Area 15. How that shapes out with
Yep.
Coleman, Hartselle, Decatur, Muscle Shoals.
Yep, Muscle Shoals and Hartselle. They get started tomorrow in Area Series. Pell City is at 10-7, man, and we saw Pell City, man. They took Hoover, I believe, like 11 or 12 innings. We saw that, man.
15.
What's that?
15.
15 innings. That's correct. Yeah, we saw that. Hoover, had 8 hits through the first 4 and 2/3 innings. And it was a tie ball game. I think it was 3-3, and then Hoover exploded for 9 runs in the 15th inning. But we saw that. I know there was a big time performance on Hoover's side as well. There, Mason Blashy on the mound and at the plate hit for the cycle. Decatur, man, had a really impressive showing down at Gulf Coast Classic 1. I know they made it to the Final Four there. They come in at 12-4. The Red Raiders do, and then Hillcrest Tuscaloosa. And if you look at Hillcrest, it seems like they're getting things rolling like they normally do. They currently come in with
about like American Christian. They have the same record. They're both from the same place.
Yep, you're right. And I think you could say the same for like an Etowah team in 4A.
Yeah.
But Hillcrest Tuscaloosa comes in at 9-8, sitting right outside the top 10 in 6A. So that'll take us to 7A.
We've got a new number 1 in Class 7A.
Whoa.
New number 1, and that's you just keep winning. Central Phoenix City takes over the top spot this week. But we've got one new team in this week's top 10, and that's Mary G. Montgomery. They come in at number 10. They sit at 12-3. They went 2-0 this past week, and one of those wins was over Auburn. So they come in at number 10, making their debut. They've been inside the Power 25 and make a steady jump this week as well. Sliding up one spot is Chelsea, who sit at 13-6. They went 4-1 this past week. I know you saw their lone loss on Wednesday against Vestavia Hills. I know that, and I think they went up to. Did they go up to Oxford and play?
I know they played Opelika.
Okay, all right. I may be getting mixed. They played Opelika and Stanhope. Obviously, beat both of those teams. So they jump up to number 9. Staying put at number 8 this week is James Clemens, after going 3-1, and in our North Alabama Showdown, sitting at 15-5. At number 7, sliding down 2 spots. I know we keep going up and down with Oak Mountain, moving them back and forth. They slide down 2 spots, coming at number 7. They sit at 16-5. They went 3-2 on the week. At number 6 is Vestavia Hills, sliding up 1 spot. They went 1-0 and sit at 8-6. Obviously, that one win that you saw over Chelsea. At number 5.
Can I say something about Vestavia?
Go ahead.
We were told first year, and which we believe, but someone said, you just remember this Vestavia offensive lineup, because the first week of the season, they really didn't score a ton of runs. I saw them last week, man, and that is an impressive 1 through 9 lineup. They seem to be really, really offensive now, and they're getting good pitching. Keep an eye on Vestavia. Don't let that record fool you.
At number 5, sliding up 1 spot this week is Spain Park. Man, the Jaguars and Coach Smith continued to roll, having a strong start to the season. They went 3-0 this past week. One of those wins coming over Thompson. So they sit at 13-5. At number 4, man, 1 through 4. I think 1 through 4 probably starting to set themselves maybe by a smaller margin, but they've kind of separated themselves here going into the middle part of the season. Hewitt-Trussell goes 4-0 this week, including a shutout win over Oxford, which I was able to see. Then they sit at 14-4 and are starting go ahead.
I believe they had 3 shutouts this week. I may be wrong, but I think 3 of the 4 wins were shutouts.
They're starting to creep up to that number 3 spot, and we talked about it talked about it this past yesterday when we were doing these rankings, but we'll kind of see how it plays out here over the next week or so. At number 3, staying put at number 3 as they have been over the past couple of weeks, is Thompson. The Warriors went 2-2 this past week. They sit at 14-7. At number 2, sliding down one spot this week, is Bob Jones. We mentioned Bob Jones losing to their one loss on the week was to Gulf Shores against Gulf Shores top arm, a really good arm who threw really well. And that was down in that Gulf Coast Classic. And, playing in that Gulf Coast Classic, it's a lot of games and a lot of days. And then you come back up on Saturday and you host Hoover and Sardis, and who they were able to beat. So they slide down one spot. They played seven games.
Yep.
And with 6-1 on the week to go to 18-4. But the Red Devils just continue to win. Central Phoenix City, they slide up to number 1 after going 2-0 this past week. I know they beat Pike Road in one of their games. I think they beat Columbus to go to 2-0. And I think they're down in the Gulf Shores. They're down in the Gulf Coast Gulf Coast Classic this week. And I think they play 2 today. But they sit at 16-1. Obviously, their resume speaks for itself. They've beaten some big time teams, and they make their way back up to the number 1 spot. Looking at some teams just outside the top 10 in Class 7A this week, you have Auburn at 8-5. Baker is 13-3. Hoover is 8-9. Looks like they're starting to figure it out a little bit. Fairhope is 13-6. Florence is 11-7. Opelika is 10-6. Smith Station is 10-7. Sparkman is 15-4. Tuscaloosa County is 10-8, and Enterprise was the lone team to drop out by a thin margin. They sit at 10-4 in Class 7A.
Yeah, man, that's those rankings in 7A, man, they're getting more and more difficult every week to put together. You mentioned it. There's some teams outside there in the top 10. You look at Sparkman, man, 15-4. They just find ways to win, and I think that the Sparkman people would agree with me. They're probably not one of the 3 or 4 or 5 most talented teams in the state, but they've had some big wins. They just find ways to win. And I know they play James Clemens tonight at Toyota Field, the home of the Trash Pandas, at 5:00. So that should be a real good one. I think that's turned into a really big rivalry. So that should be a good one tonight at 5:00. We'll find that's another good test for Sparkman and another good test for James Clemens. So we'll see how that plays out. But again, that's our 1A through 7A top 10. And as we finish up each week, we like to take a look at the top 25 teams across the state, regardless of classification. Couple movements up and down, and a couple new teams in. Austin, you want me to do it, or you got it?
I got it.
Okay. Roll through the top 25.
That one new team comes in at number 25, replaces Pike Liberal this week. American Christian, who we talked about, they sit at 8-8. They come in at number 25. At number 24, I got to get my voice ready. At number 24 is Bibb County at 15-1. At 23 is Pike Road at 12-4. At 22 is Baker at 13-3. At number 21 is Alexandria at 10-5. At number 20 is Auburn at 8-5. At number 19 is Enterprise at 10-4. At number 18 is Hoover at 8-9. At number 17 is Mary G. Montgomery at 12-3. At number 16 is Faith Academy at 10-4. At number 15 is Chelsea at 13-6. At number 14 is James Clemens at 15-5. At number 13 is Saraland at 13-4. At number 12 is Helena at 10-9. At number 11 is Mountain Brook at 15-2. At number 10 is Oak Mountain at 16-5. At number 9 is Gardendale at 9-4. At number 8 is Vestavia Hills at 8-6. At number 7 is Oxford at 10-6. At number 6 is Spain Park at 13-5. Looking at the top 5, you have Hartselle at number 5, staying put there, sitting at 11-4. And then our number 3 and 4 stay the same, with Hewitt-Trussville sitting at 14-4 and Thompson at number 3 sitting at 14-7. And then obviously that flip-flop, we mentioned it in Class 7A, just a minute ago. Central Phoenix City takes over the top spot at 16-1, while Bob Jones slides down to number 2, sitting at 18-4. So that'll do it for our Power 25. Some tough decisions.
No doubt. And I'm sure they're only going to get tougher as we move forward into the meat part of the season, I guess you can call it, as teams are getting ready to get cranked up with area play. And as you mentioned, some of them are. So, man, as always, we appreciate all of you jumping on and following along with the information we're getting out there. Again, look for this to be released on our social media channels later today. Our Mizuno Pitcher and Player of the Week tomorrow. Our Diamond Notes on Wednesday. And then our North Alabama Scout blog will be rolling out in the next couple of days. And then we'll continue that weekly Scout blog as we get out to games and update that for players that we see. But again, we appreciate you jumping on. We're, again, 23 away from 1,000. That's 22 away from 1,000. We really 21 away from 1,000. We are really. What's that?
So I'm gonna go join on my phone.
Yeah, well, we really appreciate you jumping on. We enjoy doing this, and we look forward to seeing you at the park. You know, if you see us there, please don't hesitate to come up and speak to us. I think at last count, Austin, and we're not going to see every team in the state, but I think at the last count, I think we were over 75 teams that we have 75 different teams that we've seen this year.
Yeah, and I've seen we've seen more this spring. Or this past week. So that total is probably over 80.
Yeah. So we're at about 80 different teams that we've seen throughout the state, man. And we love coming out there. Again, please come up, speak to us if you see us at your games. But as always, man, we're 8 away, man. I'm trying to stall.
Keep dragging it on.
I'm trying to stall so we can get to 1,000. We're 6 away. We're 5 away. But man, we really appreciate y'all. Hope those players
Once we hit 1,000, I'm in the stream.
Yeah, if we get to 1,000, that's when we'll stop it. But hope those players that are listening in school and those people at work, hope you don't get caught listening to this and get in trouble or whatever. But man, we really appreciate y'all. I guess Austin, that's as high as we can get there. We're at 997 viewers, man. That's awesome. We never thought that this would take off like that. But again, take care. Hopefully we see it. Oh, we're at 999. We need one more viewer, and we'll lock this thing down.
Go join on your phone.
I'll go join on my phone real quick. All right.
Someone's about to.
Let me go join.
There it is. All right.
1,001.